Some of the galaxy's most powerful figures cast long shadows, but theirs often stretched from humble beginnings. Yet what happens when darkness isn't just a shadow, but the very foundation of one's rise? Long before he commanded star destroyers, long before he ruled as emperor, and long before billions trembled at the mere whisper of his name, there was simply a boy from Naboo. His name was Sheev Palpatine, born 84 years before the Battle of Yavin on the mid-rim world of Naboo. Sheev Palpatine entered a galaxy still basking in relative peace. The Republic stood strong. Democracy flourished. The Jedi Order moved like a silent wind through the stars, protecting the innocent. Palpatine was born into Naboo's noble class family of status, tradition, and influence. This afforded the young Sheev luxuries most beings in the galaxy could never even dream of. And yet, despite the privileges that came with his birth and wealth, there was nothing in his early years that openly hinted at the horror he would one day unleash across the stars. Raised in Theed, Naboo's cultured capital, Palpatine grew up, surrounded by the gentle curves of elegant architecture, the murmur of refined society, and the ever-present hum of political discourse. Naboo was a world that prized artistic expression and intellectual rigor, values that helped shape Sheev's early understanding of people, of rhetoric, of power. While other children played in the sun, Sheev studied in the shadows. While others laughed and made friendships, he was already building connections, deliberate bonds with politicians and social elites. These were not fleeting childhood acquaintances. They were the first strands of a web he would spend decades weaving. From a young age, Sheev Palpatine showed a disturbing talent, the ability to read and shape people. He could sense weakness like a predator sniffing the wind. He knew how to exploit fear, twist insecurities, and guide conversations until his listener believed what he wanted them to believe. These weren't the clumsy experiments of a curious child. They revealed a mind wired for domination, a soul already tasting control. Those who knew him in his youth might have whispered the word ambitious. None could have imagined how far that ambition would one day reach as he grew into manhood. Palpatine developed a fascination with ancient artifacts tied to the dark side of the Force. He traveled far beyond his homeworld, venturing into forgotten ruins and silent temples scattered across the galaxy. To the uninformed, his collection might have looked like worthless junk, dusty sculptures, brittle scrolls, strange relics from cultures long dead. But Palpatine knew better. Each item was a doorway to lost knowledge, and every secret was another brick in the foundation of his future empire. These travels taught him how power could spread quietly, invisibly, like a disease in the blood, till it became unstoppable. But the true turning point in Palpatine's life came not from a ruin, but from a man cloaked in legend, a shadow who moved through myth. Darth Plagueis, the Wise. Plagueis was a Sith Lord, old, powerful, and from the moment he met the young noble from Naboo, he sensed something in him, terrifying potential for darkness that exceeded anything he had ever known. He took Palpatine as his apprentice and gave him a new name, a Sith name, Darth Sidious, and so began a secret apprenticeship in the dark side of the Force. Their bond followed the ancient tradition first laid down by Darth Bane, the rule of two, one master to hold power, one apprentice to crave it, and together they worked in utter secrecy, hidden even from the Jedi Order, who believed the Sith had vanished 1,000 years ago. Under Plagueis, Sidious learned everything: how to twist the Force, how to manipulate emotion, how to dominate thought. how to turn fear into fuel. His master taught him powers that many would later call unnatural, powers that blurred the lines between life and death, reality and illusion. Plagueis himself had become obsessed with conquering mortality. He experimented with midichlorians, the microscopic life forms that connect all beings to the Force, trying to create life from nothing. This wasn't just science, it was blasphemy. It was a whispered challenge to nature itself. Plagueis believed he had discovered a path to immortality through a technique called transference, the shifting of consciousness from one body to another, together. Master and apprentice walked through the forbidden. Through science and ancient Sith sorcery, they tried to unlock the secrets of eternal life. But as with all Sith, there could only ever be one destination. Sidious had learned all he needed, and one night, when Plagueis was deep in sleep, trusting in the loyalty of the apprentice he had raised like a son, Sidious struck. The details of that betrayal have never been fully known, but the outcome was clear. For all his knowledge, for all his attempts to defy death, Darth Plagueis, the Wise, died in his sleep at the hands of his student. Sidious would later speak of that moment with something close to affection. That was the moment he realized he had become the Master. Now, a Sith Lord in full command of his power, Sidious turned his eye to the future. He needed an apprentice, and his gaze fell upon the dark world of Dathomir, home to the Force-wielding Night Sisters. There, he approached their leader, Mother Talzin. At first, he considered her as a possible apprentice. He flattered her. He promised her power beyond imagination. He wove the dark side into her strange magics. But Sidious never meant to keep his word. Instead, his interest shifted to her son and infant Zabrok, Night Brother, already brimming with untamed power. Sidious demanded the child. When Talzin hesitated, he threatened to withdraw everything he'd promised her. Left with no choice, Talzin gave up her son, but in her heart, a seed of vengeance was planted, one that would burn quietly for years to come. The child, torn from his mother before he could even speak her name, would become known to the galaxy as Darth Maul. What drew Sidious to Maul was not just his potential, but his fury. The boy's rage was uncontainable, wild, instinctive, and that was what Sidious needed. Rage could be sharpened into a blade. Sidious subjected Maul to a brutal training regimen. He molded him into a weapon of pure hate. On the dead world of Malachor, he forced Maul to breathe in the ashes of long-dead Sith warriors, filling his mind with visions of Jedi slaughtering them. Through this, he forged Maul into a living embodiment of Sith revenge. Years passed. Maul was hidden away, kept secret. Sidious's shadow weapon, forged in silence. But even as he trained the boy, Sidious was thinking beyond him, already imagining the day he would cast him aside. Meanwhile, in the public eye, Sidious remained the picture of civility. He was still Sheev Palpatine, the mild-mannered politician from Naboo, a senator, humble and composed. None who met him in the Senate could have imagined that behind his gentle smile lurked a Sith Lord, the most dangerous predator in 1,000 years. This ability to divide himself, perfectly to be both the polished statesman and the secret Sith Lord, was the heart of his genius, and it was the key to his plan. By 52 BBY, Palpatine had secured election as senator for Naboo and the Chamel sector. This gave him influence over 36 planets in the Republic Senate. He appeared to be nothing more than a rising politician from a peaceful world. His peers saw a soft-spoken representative who aligned himself with Chancellor Skor Kalpana's ruling party. Few noticed how swiftly he gained power. Fewer still realized how closely he studied the Republic's weaknesses. He built quiet relationships with promising military minds, like Wilhoff Tarkin. He supported legislation that benefited Tarkin's homeworld of Eriadu and the surrounding Sullust sector. These favors built a foundation of loyalty that would serve him well in the decades ahead. In rare private meetings, Palpatine spoke to Tarkin of unrest in the Outer Rim, whispering of dangers the Republic was too blind to see. Meanwhile, whispers swirled through Coruscant's political circles. Some claimed Palpatine had allies in the shadows, industrialists, financiers, banking clans, but nothing was ever proven. And all the while, his influence grew, while Senator Palpatine amassed power within the Senate. Darth Sidious was working to tear it apart from the outside. His first target was the Trade Federation, a powerful commerce guild with its own battle-ready military. Through threats and manipulation, Sidious took control of its leader, Viceroy Newt Gunray. The Federation, in turn, began building a massive droid army, manufactured in secret by the Geonosians under Poggle, the lesser yet another pawn in Sidious's grand design. For years, Sidious had orchestrated petty battles in the Senate over trade route taxation, deliberately ensuring that no side could ever win. The gridlock weakened Chancellor Valorum and kept the Republic in a state of distraction. When taxation of outlying systems became a flashpoint issue, Sidious saw his chance. He ordered the Trade Federation to blockade Naboo, his own homeworld, under the guise of protesting the new taxes. Gunray hesitated, questioning the legality. Sidious simply assured him, "I will make it legal." And so the plan began. In public, Senator Palpatine railed against the blockade. In private, Darth Sidious controlled its every step. The Republic reacted predictably. Chancellor Valorum, desperate for a peaceful solution, sent a Jedi to negotiate. This, too, was part of Sidious's plan. He ordered Gunray to kill them and invade Naboo outright. The Jedi survived, but Naboo fell. And just as Sidious intended, the crisis shook the galaxy as Naboo suffered under occupation. Palpatine stood in the Senate as a symbol of concern and sympathy. When Queen Amidala escaped the planet and pleaded her case in person, Palpatine was waiting for her. Calmly, carefully, he told her the truth that the Senate was broken, that Valorum was too weak, and that the only solution was a vote of no. Confidence. When Amidala spoke before the Senate, Palpatine's whispers had already taken root. Valorum's supporters collapsed. The call for a new chancellor echoed across the chamber. In the resulting political vacuum, Palpatine offered himself as a candidate alongside Bail Antilles of Alderaan and Only Team of Malastari. But Palpatine had something they didn't. He represented the suffering world, the victim, the hero. And that gave him an edge the others could not match. As the Senate debated and Queen Amidala returned to Naboo to liberate her people, Darth Maul stepped from the shadows to face her Jedi protectors. The game had begun. This was the first time. The Jedi had faced a Sith Lord in 1,000 years, revelation that sent a tremor through the ancient order. Darth Maul's sudden emergence shattered their belief that the Sith were extinct. Though Maul succeeded in striking down Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, he too fell slain by Qui-Gon's apprentice, Obi-Wan Kenobi. The loss of Maul might have seemed a defeat, a setback in Sidious's plans. But in truth, Sidious had already seen further, already glimpsed a new path. During the Naboo crisis, a child had been discovered, a boy unlike any other. Anakin Skywalker. Tests revealed Anakin to possess the highest midichlorian count ever recorded, suggesting he could be the long-prophesied chosen one, destined to bring balance to the Force. To the Jedi, he was a mystery, To Sidious, he was a revelation, a far greater asset than Maul could ever have been. Back on Coruscant, the game continued its flawless unfolding. As Naboo celebrated its liberation, the Senate elected Palpatine as Supreme Chancellor of the Republic. During the victory parade on Naboo, Chancellor Palpatine himself approached young Skywalker, congratulated him, and told him that his future would be watched with great interest. Those nearby heard only a kindly statesman offering encouragement to a brave boy. But what they witnessed was something far more chilling. A predator quietly marking his future prey. With Darth Maul gone, Sidious needed a new apprentice to preserve the rule of two. His gaze turned to Count Dooku, former Jedi Master disillusioned with both the Order and the Republic. Dooku, devastated by the death of his former Padawan Qui-Gon Jinn on Naboo, departed from the Jedi Order and reclaimed his title as Count of Cyrano. Sidious saw the cracks in Dooku's faith and slipped through them like smoke, exploiting his anger and grief. He bestowed upon him a Sith named Darth Tyrannus. Their alliance bore fruit quickly. Under Sidious's guidance, Dooku carried out the quiet elimination of Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas. Then he inherited his secret project, the commissioning of a massive clone army on the distant, storm-racked world of Kamino. To cover his tracks, Dooku erased Kamino from the Jedi archives, erasing its name like it had never existed. That army, faceless and engineered, would become another critical piece in the grand mosaic. Sidious was crafting Dot from his modest beginnings as a senator from a peaceful mid-rim world. Palpatine had now ascended to the Republic's highest office. With one hand, he gripped the light standing in the Senate as its guardian. With the other, veiled in shadow, he gripped the dark, whispering as Darth Sidious' control of both spheres placed him in perfect position to execute the next phase of his plan, the engineered collapse of the Republic itself. Each event, each death, each appointment, each manipulation was not a deviation or correction. It was a perfect step along the path of a plan deeper and more patient than anyone could imagine. As the galaxy celebrated peace on Naboo, they failed to see the Phantom Menace had not been vanquished. It had prevailed, and now it sat calmly in the Chancellor's office, wearing a smile. Cloaked in legitimacy, the most brilliant chess players think 12 moves ahead. Palpatine thought in decades. While the galaxy busied itself with daily politics, personal ambitions, and temporary struggles, he orchestrated a war so vast, so intricate, that billions would die without ever understanding the part they played in it. From his tower in Coruscant, Palpatine prepared to unleash the Clone Wars, a galaxy-spanning conflict in which both sides would unknowingly serve the same master. With Count Dooku now acting as his Sith apprentice, Darth Tyrannus Sidious began sculpting the perfect enemy for the Republic. Dooku rallied thousands of star systems to break away, forming the Confederacy of Independent Systems. It was a movement built on real grievances. Many Outer Rim worlds felt neglected by the Republic, strangled by bureaucracy and corruption. Few suspected that the charismatic Count who spoke so eloquently of liberty was a Sith Lord, intent on annihilating both sides. But the foundation of Sidious's plan had been laid long ago. Years earlier, Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas foresaw a coming conflict and secretly commissioned a clone army on Kamino. After his murder, Dooku and Sidious took control of the project, selecting bounty hunter Jango Fett as the genetic template. Yet they added one crucial, horrifying modification, one that even the Kaminoan cloners never fully understood. Each clone was implanted with a behavioral modification biochip. Hidden within was Protocol 66, a command that, when activated, would override the clones' free will and reprogram them to view all Jedi as traitors to be eliminated. This order would lie dormant, buried deep in their minds. For years, they would serve as loyal soldiers of the Republic. But they were time bombs, waiting as the separatist movement spread across the stars. Palpatine showed the same political brilliance that had once earned him the Chancellor's seat. In public, he remained the reluctant leader, troubled, even sorrowful at the Republic's descent into war. In secret, Darth Sidious met with separatist leaders, directing every strategy and setback with surgical precision. The true moment of crisis arrived when the Jedi uncovered the clone army on Kamino. At nearly the same time, they learned that the separatists were assembling a massive droid army on Geonosis. The Jedi intervened too late. Captured on Geonosis, they found themselves pawns in another step of Sidious's grand design. Back on Coruscant, the Senate voted to grant emergency powers to Supreme Chancellor Palpatine. His first act under these new authorities was to approve the use of the clone army. With that, the Clone Wars began. The war was never meant to be short or clean. It was a meat grinder designed to devour entire worlds, to sap morale, and to fracture the Republic's soul. Each apparent Republic victory was counterbalanced by a new separatist offensive. Whenever military leaders threatened to shorten the war, they were discredited, reassigned, or quietly removed. No battle was ever decisive, no resolution ever final. The war dragged on, draining life and hope from every corner of the galaxy. Through the conflict's 3 grueling years, Palpatine continued gathering emergency powers under the banner of necessity. Each change to the Galactic Constitution was called a temporary measurement to address a momentary crisis. But the effect was cumulative, a slow, precise dismantling of every democratic safeguard the Republic had relied upon for 1,000 generations. The Senate, once the sacred voice of the people, became an echo chamber, its influence eclipsed by the Chancellor's expanding authority. Regional governors were appointed to oversee vast swaths of space, cutting out planetary representatives. Military decisions moved from the Jedi Council to Palpatine's direct command. Even the Jedi themselves, once guardians of peace, were now generals, bound by duty to fight a war they had never wanted. The very institutions that might have resisted tyranny were hollowed out, one signature at a time. But through it all, Palpatine never lost focus on his greatest project, Anakin Skywalker. The boy was now a young man, a warrior, a Jedi Knight, but he was still emotionally fragile, his attachments, his doubts, and his hunger for control all quietly growing. Palpatine had cultivated their bond for years, and now he began pressing harder. With the Jedi Council, Palpatine remained formal, distant. With Anakin, he was warm, fatherly, a confidant, a friend. He praised Anakin's brilliance in the Jedi Temple's training halls. He attended sparring sessions, offering compliments on his saber work. These gestures nurtured trust, and that trust became a weapon. Whenever Anakin expressed frustration with Jedi teachings, Palpatine subtly encouraged it. When he questioned the orders, rules, especially those around emotion and attachment, Palpatine listened with understanding rather than judgment. Each conversation became another seed, another gentle challenge to the Jedi's authority. Over and over again, Palpatine told Anakin what he most longed to hear, that he was unique, that he was powerful, that his destiny surpassed even that of Master Yoda. These words stoked the embers of pride in Anakin's heart, dangerous, glowing embers that would soon ignite into wildfire. Palpatine urged him to trust his feelings, not suppress them. The Jedi called emotion a weakness. Palpatine called it truth, as the Clone Wars neared their end. The moment arrived to pull the final threads. The galaxy was battered. The Jedi were scattered across countless war fronts. And Anakin Skywalker, powerful but conflicted, stood alone. At the precipice, with perfect orchestration, Sidious arranged his own kidnapping. General Grievous, the cyborg commander of the Separatist forces, used hidden hyperspace lanes to launch a surprise attack on Coruscant itself. Amid the chaos, Grievous captured Chancellor Palpatine and brought him aboard his flagship, the Invisible Hand, just as Sidious had ordered. The gambit was genius. It cast Palpatine as a victim, not a manipulator. It justified new emergency powers. And most importantly, it set the stage for Anakin to take another step. Toward the dark side, Jedi Masters, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker arrived to rescue the Chancellor. On the observation deck of the ship, they found Count Dooku waiting. A duel ensued. Dooku disabled Kenobi, leaving Skywalker alone. Anakin fought harder, stronger than ever before. And when he disarmed Dooku, severing both his hands, the Count fell to his knees. Palpatine, bound in the chair, then spoke. "Do it," Anakin hesitated. Killing a defenseless prisoner violated everything the Jedi stood for. But Palpatine urged him again, and Anakin, confused and filled with rage, obeyed. He beheaded Dooku. Palpatine praised him. But he also noted that it wasn't the Jedi weigh-in, other subtle fracture in Anakin's moral compass. What Anakin did not know, could not know, was that Dooku had been marked for death long ago. He had served his purpose. Now he had to die to push Anakin further along the path. Dooku himself never knew he had been sacrificed. This was the brilliance of Sidious's design. Every layer of the war, every tragedy, every triumph, it all served multiple purposes. The Republic weakened, the Chancellor gained power, the Jedi were drawn into political service. Anakin's doubts deepened, and the Sith drew closer to their final, eternal victory as the galaxy burned. Most believed the war was Republic versus Separatists. They were wrong. The true war was freedom versus control, light versus darkness, and in that war, fought in whispered lies and silent betrayals, Darth Sidious was winning. The Republic wasn't being conquered from without. It was rotting from within. And as the Clone Wars drew to a close, Palpatine prepared to spring the trap he had set 30 years before. The Jedi were dispersed. The Republic was gasping for breath. And Anakin Skywalker, haunted by dreams of death, was about to fall into the shadow. He had seen his pregnant wife, Padme, dying in childbirth night after night. The fear of losing her consumed him. He remembered the dreams of his mother, how they had led to her death. Now it was happening again, but he could tell no one. Their marriage was forbidden. The Jedi could never know. Palpatine, patient and ever watching, recognized the moment. It was time. He had been grooming Anakin for years, posing as his guide, his protector, his only true ally. Now he would pierce the heart at an opera performance, bathed in crimson light and haunted melody. Palpatine leaned in and whispered a legend. The tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, a Sith Lord so powerful. He could manipulate the midichlorians to create life, and prevent those he cared about from dying. That was the bait, set perfectly, delicately. Anakin, desperate to save his wife from the nightmare that haunted his visions, found himself drawn completely to the mere possibility of such power. Palpatine, watching carefully, noted the spark in the young Jedi's eyes. Then, he said it plainly. This power, this ability to defy death, was not something the Jedi could teach. The seed was planted. Anakin now believed there might be a way to save Padmé, but that it lay within forbidden knowledge. Days later, the final move was made. In private, in the dim hush of his office, Palpatine revealed what he truly was. He told Anakin plainly he was trained in the ways of the Force, including the nature of the dark side. It was a confession that tore the ground out from beneath Anakin's feet as a Jedi. His path was supposed to be clear. He should report this Sith Lord to the Council, but to do so might destroy the only chance he had to save the woman he loved more than his own life. Caught between duty and desperation, Anakin went to Jedi Master Mace Windu. He told him everything. Windu, grim and resolved, gathered a small team of Jedi Masters to confront the Chancellor. But even as they moved toward Palpatine's office to arrest him, Anakin's conviction began to fracture. He could not bear the thought of losing the only person who might be able to stop Padmé's death. He arrived just as Windu gained the upper hand. The sight that met Anakin's eyes was jarring. The Chancellor, the gentle, wise figure who had mentored him for years, seemed broken, pleading, backed into a corner by Windu's glowing blade. Then the illusion shattered. Palpatine struck back with Force lightning, a blinding storm of energy. Windu blocked it, deflecting it back at the Sith Lord, and the surge disfigured Palpatine's face, twisting it into the monstrous visage he would wear forever. Now revealed in his true form, Sidious fell to the floor, rasping in weakness. He begged Anakin for help. He told him he was too weak to continue defending himself. Windu, unwavering, declared that Palpatine was too dangerous to be left alive. He raised his lightsaber, ready to end the Sith once and for all, and in that fateful moment, Anakin chose he ignited his saber and severed Windu's hand. The Jedi Master barely had time to cry out before Sidious unleashed the full fury of the dark side. Lightning exploded from his fingers, consuming Windu and hurling him through the window to his death. And with that one act, Anakin Skywalker fell. The silence that followed was heavy. Anakin dropped to his knees in anguish, already aware that something sacred inside him had broken. Palpatine, seizing the moment, stepped forward. He offered a way out. He offered a new path. Blinded by grief and desperation, Anakin accepted. He pledged himself to the teachings of the dark side, hoping that within its shadows he might find the power to save. Podpal Palpatine gave him a new name, Darth Vader. The transformation was swift, brutal. Palpatine ordered Vader to lead the 501st Legion, his elite clone unit, on a mission to destroy the Jedi Temple. Vader obeyed. Without hesitation, he marched up the temple steps with hundreds of clone troopers behind him. What followed was not a battle, it was a massacre. Jedi Masters, Knights, Padawans even, the youngest of younglings, were cut down by Vader's blade and clone blasters. No one was spared. No one. At the same time, across the galaxy, Palpatine enacted Order 66 through secure channels. He gave the command, "Execute Order 66." The biochips hidden inside every clone soldier activated instantly. Loyal troops had fought beside their Jedi generals for years suddenly turned on them, killing without hesitation, without remorse. On Magito, Master Ki-Adi-Mundi was shot in the back mid-charge by Commander Bakara and the Galactic Marines. On Felucia, Aayla Secura fell in a forest of blaster fire, gunned down by Commander Bly. On Katoni Moidia, Plo Koon's starfighter was shot down by his own wingman. Even Master Yoda felt the moment his breath stilled. His senses sharpened. The Force screamed. In the blink of an eye, he evaded death by seconds, in a single, coordinated strike. The Jedi were nearly wiped from existence. An order that had lasted 1,000 generations was reduced to ashes and fugitives in minutes. The Great Jedi Purge had begun, and the galaxy changed forever, with the Temple in flames and the Jedi scattered. Palpatine moved swiftly to complete his final act. He called an emergency session of the Senate. His face, now grotesquely disfigured from his attack by Windu, was not hidden but used displayed as proof of betrayal. Standing before the vast assembly, he claimed he had been brutally assaulted by Jedi traitors, who sought to overthrow the government. He declared that their plot had been foiled, that loyal clone troopers had crushed the insurrection. Any Jedi still alive, he said, would be hunted down and destroyed. Then, with deliberate grandeur, he proclaimed the Republic would be reorganized into the first Galactic Empire for a safe and secure society rather than protest. The Senate erupted in thunderous applause. Democracy died not through conquest, but with celebration, exhausted by war, seduced by the promise of peace and order. The same senators who once swore to guard liberty now welcomed its end. Meanwhile, Palpatine sent Vader to Mustafar to eliminate the remaining separatist leaders. The mission served multiple purposes. It eliminated loose ends, those who knew of Sidious's ties to the separatists. It further steeped Vader in death, and it positioned him for the confrontation that would define him forever. Padme followed him, horrified by what he had become. She landed on Mustafar, desperate to save him, but Obi-Wan Kenobi had secretly stowed aboard her ship. When Vader saw them together, suspicion overtook reason. Rage flared. He believed Padman had betrayed him. In a fit of fury, he choked his pregnant wife with the Force, leaving her unconscious. Then he turned on Obi-Wan. Their duel was savage, explosive, a clash of fire and sorrow among rivers of molten lava. But in the end, Vader was defeated. Obi-Wan, heartbroken, severed his limbs and left him burning on the black shore. He could not bring himself to kill his friend. He walked away. As Anakin screamed, burning, broken, lost. But Sidious had been watching. He felt his apprentice's pain, and he moved. He arrived on Mustafar with a medical capsule and clone troopers. Vader's charred body was retrieved from the lava banks and brought to Coruscant. What followed was rebirth in agony. Teams of droids and cybernetic surgeons worked through the night to save him. His limbs were replaced with machines. His lungs, ruined, were aided by a rasping breath apparatus. A suit of black armor was built part life support, part prison, and through it all, Vader remained conscious. The pain was excruciating, feeding his growing hatred, feeding the dark side. When the procedure ended, Sidious approached. Vader's first question, his only question, was about Padme. And in his cruelest lie, Sidious told him she was dead, that he had killed her in his rage. It was not true. Padme had died after childbirth, delivering twins, Luke and Leia. But her death was strange, her body unharmed. Her will to live, simply gone. The lie suited Sidious perfectly. It broke what was left of Anakin Skywalker in his anguish. Vader destroyed everything around him, shattering droids, crushing walls, screaming into the void. Sidious watched it all with quiet satisfaction. He had done it. He had taken the chosen one and turned him into the perfect instrument of darkness. The Republic was gone. The Empire had risen. The Jedi were dead. The clones, once defenders of peace, now enforced tyranny as stormtroopers. The Senate remained in name, but power had shifted. 2 regional governors, loyal only to the Emperor, 1,000 years of progress had collapsed almost overnight, and few even realized it had happened. For Sidious, this was the climax of generations of Sith ambition. The Sith had their revenge. The dark side ruled, and the galaxy entered its darkest hour. But even this wasn't enough. True power, once attained, does not satisfy. It only deepens the hunger. Conquering the galaxy was only the first step in a far greater design. Palpatine's gaze turned inward and outward toward goals even darker than political control. He took the Jedi Temple as his personal residence, not just as a symbol, but for what lay beneath, unknown to most. The temple had been built atop an ancient Sith shrine. The Jedi had tried to bury it. To silence its dark energy, Palpatine reopened it, using droids overseen by 11-4D, his protocol droid inherited from Darth Plagueis. He restored the shrine now. The ancient dark energy flowed freely again, empowering him, corrupting the sacred halls above. With the Jedi nearly extinct, he turned to a new challenge, hunting the survivors. Thus was born the Inquisitorius, a secret order of dark side agents, trained to find and destroy the last of the Jedi. Most were former Jedi themselves, captured, tortured, broken, turned. The Grand Inquisitor, once a temple guard, the 5th brother. Many others. They now wielded red lightsabers. They now served the very empire they once would have fought. For those who resisted, harsher measures were used. When the Inquisitors captured Jocasta Nutha, Jedi librarian, Palpatine ordered Vader to extract every bit of knowledge she carried. Secrets, artifacts, the locations of Force-sensitive children. Once she was emptied of use, she was eliminated. Her wisdom, absorbed into Sidious's growing vault of forbidden lore, the daily work of ruling such a vast empire, soon bored him, though he had labored for decades to gain this power. The mechanics of governing no longer held his interest. He delegated such matters to subordinates. He had darker pursuits now. His true goal was immortality. It had been the obsession of his master, Darth Plagueis. Palpatine inherited that obsession. He built a private sanctum filled with ancient Sith texts and artifacts. There, in the darkness, he conducted experiments that would make even his admirals tremble. He wanted to conquer death. That path led him to Exegala world, hidden in the unknown regions. Soaked in dark side power, there he established a secret citadel, known only to his most trusted followers. Exegol became home to the Sith Eternaler, cult of zealots devoted to Palpatine. They began experiments, fusing ancient Sith alchemy with cloning, science-seeking bodies that could house Sidious's spirit if needed. Meanwhile, he kept the Imperial Senate alive in name, but it had become irrelevant. He sought a more final form of control, the Death Star, a moon-sized battle station, capable of destroying entire planets. Fear would be the Empire's ultimate weapon, not persuasion, not politics. The Death Star was more than a weapon. It was a doctrine, but this was just one part of his expanding vision. He dispatched explorers into the unknown regions, searching for the dark source of the Force. New outposts were established on forgotten moons and asteroids. Research labs, relay stations, armories, all secret, all under his direct control. They served another, more chilling purpose. They were part of the contingency, a plan for what would happen if Palpatine ever died. His vision was eternal, and even death would not stop him. The arrangement continued over decades, known only to Palpatine and a select few chosen servants. One such servant was Gallus Rexan Orphan, the Emperor, discovered on the forgotten frontier world of Jakku. The boy had stowed away aboard the Imperialis, Palpatine's personal starship. Found, cornered, and terrified, Rex was given a choice. Between death and service, he chose to live, and in choosing, his fate was sealed. Palpatine assigned him to guard a mysterious excavation site on Jakku that held special, hidden significance to the Dark Ruler. Years later, Rex was fully inducted into Imperial service, entrusted with sacred aspects of the Emperor's contingency. Shadow planned to ensure that if Palpatine ever died before his grand design reached completion, the Empire would not be permitted to outlive its Emperor. But Palpatine's hunger for control did not end with plans or armies. His reach extended to the recruitment of unique, exceptional minds. When Captain Vos Park encountered a Kaiser's strategist named Thrawn in wild space, Palpatine saw something rare. He personally interviewed the alien tactician, recognizing in Thrawn a mind of astonishing military genius and knowledge of the unknown regions that few in the galaxy possessed. In a private meeting within his garden, the Emperor revealed his long-standing obsession with those mysterious regions, forging a quiet alliance that would serve both their ambitions. As the years passed, Palpatine retreated deeper into shadow. His public appearances dwindled until most citizens knew him only from the ever-present propaganda holus. But this retreat was not for safety or ceremony, was transformation. The more he immersed himself in the secrets of the dark side, the more his physical form suffered. His already scarred and twisted appearance grew worse, his body becoming a decaying vessel for the malevolent energy that consumed him from within. But his grip on power only tightened, while his body withered. His presence, his terror grew. He ruled through fear, and Darth Vader, his dark enforcer, became the face of that fear. From the shadows, Palpatine pulled strings across star systems. Moffs and Grand Moffs carried out his will, their commands enforced by an military juggernaut. When resistance fled, he responded with cold, brutal calculation. The subjugation of Mon Cala revealed his pattern. When whispers emerged that a Jedi might be advising King Lichar, Palpatine dispatched Vader, the Inquisitorius, and a military force under Grand Moff Tarkin. The peaceful Mon Calamari people were crushed under Imperial boots. Their brilliant engineers, once symbols of their world's pride, were enslaved, forced to build for the very fleet that had broken them. Even in victory, Palpatine remained cautious of Vader's power. He saw the potential for rebellion in his apprentice's strength, and so he tested him relentlessly. When the scientist Dr. Silo presented a group of cybernetically enhanced warriors, Palpatine allowed them to challenge Vader directly. He demanded that his apprentice prove himself, not just through strength, but cunning, through blood, through fire. These trials served a dual purpose. They kept Vader sharp, never letting him grow complacent, and they made a point, should Vader fail, stray replacements were already prepared. Though none of these challenges ever proved Vader's equal, their existence delivered a clear message. No one, not even the Sith Lord, Darth Vader, was indispensable. The depths of Palpatine's dark side studies were so hidden, so vast, that even Vader remained in the dark. The Emperor's ultimate goal went beyond galactic rule, beyond the extinction of the Jedi. He sought the power to reshape reality itself, not just immortality, but dominion over the Force. The ability to bend existence, to bring every soul, every atom, under his control. The Death Star was merely a milestone, a monument to fear, a way to subdue the galaxy while he and Vader searched for deeper, darker truths. As the decades stretched, the New Order fossilized into something far crueler. Oppression deepened. Slavery returned to planets that had been free for generations. Non-human species were marginalized. Cultures were destroyed. Traditions erased. Entire populations were uprooted, forced to labor in the Empire's furnaces and factories. What began as a flicker of darkness in Palpatine's heart now smothered the stars, and through it all, most beings never saw the true face of their ruler. They saw only the uniformed officers, the marching stormtroopers, the shadow of star destroyers blotting out their skies. Few realized that behind these symbols of tyranny loomed something far worse, a being who viewed the galaxy not as something to guide or protect, but as raw fuel for his own ascension. A galaxy to consume in his pursuit of godhood, of life, of death, of the Force itself. But even the most careful plan can be unraveled by the smallest thread. For Palpatine, that thread was a farm boy from Tatooine, with 2 proton torpedoes and a single shot. Luke Skywalker destroyed the Death Star during the Battle of Yavin. In that explosion, decades of planning burned in an instant. Palpatine stood at the edge of crisis and opportunity. The Death Star had not been merely a weapon. It was the embodiment of Palpatine's philosophy, rule through fear. With it, he had planned to finally dissolve the Senate and rule openly, without pretense. Its destruction was more than a tactical loss. It was a wound to his mythocene that the Empire could bleed. Soon after, reports reached him identifying the pilot responsible, a Skywalker, from Tatooine. Palpatine froze. That name could not be coincidence. More investigation confirmed his suspicion. This rebel pilot was the son of Darth Vader, hidden away after birth, raised in obscurity, for the first time in many years. Palpatine felt genuine interest in another being, not as a pawn, not as a means to power, but as a successor in Luke Skywalker. He saw potential that might even surpass Anakin's. A boy with no formal training who had destroyed the Empire's greatest weapon through instinct and a raw, untrained bond with the Force. What might he become under Sith guidance? But Palpatine first had to steady the Empire. The destruction of the Death Star rippled across the galaxy. Fear faltered. Pirates raided supply convoys. Worlds like resource-rich Shutoran resisted. Imperial demands. Palpatine acted swiftly. He appointed General Cassio Tag as Grand General over all military forces, rewarding his foresight for warning against sole reliance on the Death Star. In contrast, Vader was demoted, ordered to serve under Tag. It was public humiliation, a cold test of obedience, but this was only the beginning. Palpatine accelerated his efforts to replace Vader with Dr. Silo's help. He supported a new generation of enhanced warrior cybernetic beings designed to rival Force users without touching the Force itself. Among them were the twins, Morit and Ilan Astarte, the scientist Toulon Voidgazer, and Commander Carbina Mon Calamari, reshaped in the image of General Grievous. Palpatine arranged for a brutal competition. Let them fight Vader. Let the strongest survive. The winner would be his new enforcer. This cruel contest served many ends. It made Vader stronger. It revealed potential heirs. And most importantly, it kept Vader distracted focused on survival, not treason. Meanwhile, Palpatine's gaze never left young Skywalker. Luke had trained briefly under Obi-Wan before Kenobi's death. Now, he fought for the rebellion, his Force sensitivity growing without guidance. Palpatine sensed something in the currents of the Force, a disturbance, a power rising. When it was confirmed beyond doubt that Luke was Vader's son, Palpatine revealed this to his apprentice. Through hologram, aboard the Executor, the Emperor disclosed the identity of the pilot who destroyed the Death Star. The move was deliberate. If Vader could turn Luke to the dark side, they would gain an unmatched asset. If Luke killed Vader, he would be raw, grieving, and ready to be molded as a new apprentice. What Palpatine could not foresee was how the news would shake Vader. After nearly 20 years of servitude, something long buried stirred within him. The knowledge that his son lived cracked open a place in his heart thought long dead. On the surface, Vader remained loyal, but inside, treason took root. He began to dream of a new order, he and Luke, side by side, toppling the Emperor. Palpatine had created a variable he could not fully control. Still, the war pressed on. After a rebel defeat on Hoth, the Emperor had time to focus on his secret project, Second Death Star. Larger, deadlier, flawless. It was constructed in orbit over Ender's forest moon, guarded by a shield generator below. As it neared completion, Palpatine made a bold decision. He would oversee the final stages personally, and he would let the rebels find out. It was not a mistake. It was a trap. He knew the Alliance, hungry for hope, would pour all their strength into destroying the new station, and with himself on board, he made the bait irresistible. But this Death Star was fully operational. While it appeared incomplete, its super laser was ready to fire. The final piece of the Emperor's puzzle was Skywalker. Through Vader, he arranged for the boy to be brought before him. When Luke arrived, Palpatine revealed the full sweep of his design. The shield remained active, the rebel fleet was trapped, and Skywalker would watch them all, die unless he chose the dark dot in the darkened throne room. Palpatine unleashed the same psychological weapons he had used for decades. He praised Luke's strength, mocked his compassion, and urged him to give, into hatred especially toward Vader. When Luke resisted, Palpatine revealed that his friends had been captured on Endor. The Death Star destroyed a rebel cruiser, twisting the blade of despair. Luke cracked. He ignited his saber and struck at the Emperor, but Vader blocked the blow. Father and son clashed, their battle echoing across the Force. Palpatine watched, pleased, as Luke's fury grew. When Vader sensed the existence of Luke's sister and threatened her, Luke snapped. He unleashed his full rage, overpowering his father and severing his hand. It was exactly what Palpatine wanted. Luke, filled with hatred, stood ready. The Emperor urged him to strike down Vader and take his place. But in that moment, Luke stopped. He threw away his ligged stare. He declared, "I am a Jedi, like my father before me." Palpatine's pleasure curdled into rage. He unleashed the storm. Bolts of Force lightning poured from his fingers, engulfing Luke in torment. He cackled as he tortured the boy, savoring his agony, gloating that his friends would die. Then Luke would die as well. But then, something happened, something Palpatine could not control. Vader, watching his son suffer, felt the cold edifice of the dark side crack. Something long buried rose to the surface. Something human, the man who had once been Anakin Skywalker, re-emerged. In a final act of clarity and conviction, Vader lifted the Emperor and carried him to the edge of a nearby reactor shaft. Though weakened by the storm of force lightning Palpatine hurled at him in desperate rage, Vader held firm. He hurled his master into the Death Star's core. As Palpatine fell, he continued to scream, unleashing arcs of lightning upward, his fury crackling across the air until his body struck the reactor and exploded in a burst of blue energy that engulfed the throne. Then, silence. After more than 2 decades of absolute rule, the Emperor appeared to be dead. His reign so long defined by manipulation, fear, and darkness ended by the very apprentice he had shaped and chained to his will. In that moment, the ancient prophecy of the Chosen One found its fulfillment. Anakin Skywalker, through his final act of sacrifice, had brought balance to the Force by destroying both himself and his Sith Master. The empire he and Palpatine had built began to crumble almost immediately. The shield generator on Endor was destroyed by the Rebel strike team. The Death Star, vulnerable, soon followed. It was obliterated in a blaze of light that sent shockwaves across the stars. The Imperial war machine, once thought invincible, was revealed to be mortal. Word of the Emperor's death spread quickly. Imperial authorities tried desperately to suppress the truth. In the unknown sector and beyond, state propaganda claimed the attack on the second Death Star had failed. Some messages insisted Palpatine had survived. Others spun absurd tales that he still ruled from beyond the grave. Confusion reigned. The deaths of both Palpatine and Vader, coupled with the destruction of the Death Star and countless Star Destroyers, created a power vacuum at the heart of the Empire. With no central command, Moffs and military leaders scrambled to consolidate their territories, but to the wider galaxy, it seemed the long nightmare of Sith domination had ended. The rebellion, reborn as the New Republic, began the monumental work of rebuilding democracy. Yet, far from the celebrations, deep in the shadows of the unknown regions, something stirred. Plans laid in secret decades earlier began to activate. The contingency Palpatine's fail-safe in case of death initiated itself. Loyal Imperial officers received posthumous instructions from their Emperor. Despite appearances, Darth Sidious had prepared extensively for this possibility. The destruction of his body was not the end. It was a step, a transition, a delay. Death comes for everyone, except, sometimes, it doses. Vader hurled Palpatine down the shaft. The Sith Lord had little time to consider his apprentice's betrayal, but he had prepared. In those final seconds, as his body fell, his consciousness fled. Mind, fortified by dark side mastery and secrets stolen from Darth Plagueis, surged through the Force toward salvation. He reached Exegol, a hidden Sith world in the unknown regions. There, waiting for him, was a Vesselar clone, created through ancient dark science and Clone War Zero technology. His original body was vaporized in the reactor's blast, but his essence survived. Palpatine was reborn, but imperfectly. The clone body into which he poured his spirit was flawed. It could not withstand the raw intensity of the dark side energy that composed his soul. The body began decaying almost immediately. Ghoulish, mangled, blind, limbs missing, muscles wasting, his eyes clouded by cataracts. Palpatine had returned, but as something between life and death. He could no longer move without aid. A mechanical spine, the omen harnessed ones worn by an ancient Sith king, was grafted to his back, allowing limited movement. Even this grotesque support could not halt the rot. He was suspended in machinery. his existence maintained by constant infusions of restorative fluids. But his mind was sharper than ever, on Exegol, surrounded by Sith eternal cultists who revered him as a god. Palpatine began executing the contingency. One arm of this plan was Operation Cinder. Loyalist worlds, not enemy planets, but worlds that had served the Empire were targeted for annihilation. Deadly weather satellites rained destruction upon Naboo, Vardos, and more. Lightning storms ravaged entire cities. These attacks were not strategic. They were punishment, cleansing fire. Palpatine sought to erase all trace of his hidden projects and punish the Empire for failing to protect him. Another part of the plan guided select Imperial remnants into the unknown regions. Using hyperspace routes mapped by automated scouts and collected through years of research, agents like Gallius Rax funneled ships, technology, and personnel into the shadows. These fragments would form the core of a new power, the First Order. But this was only one aspect of Palpatine's survival. While the First Order expanded in secret, Palpatine focused on constructing a true Sith Empire. On Exegol, enormous automated shipyards began building an armada of star destroyers, each equipped with planet-killing weapons. Children were taken, indoctrinated, flash-trained, using techniques developed during the Clone Wars. Sith loyalists infiltrated companies like Kuatantrala Engineering and Cinerimus fleet systems, channeling resources into the dark world. The greatest tool in Palpatine's resurrection was Snoke, a being genetically engineered through Sith eternal experimentation. Snoke had been a failed attempt to create a vessel suitable for Palpatine's spirit. Though Force-sensitive, his body was unstable. But Palpatine found use for him nonetheless. Snoke became a puppet ruler. Through him, Palpatine steered the First Order into becoming a sleek, terrifying war machine, even more advanced than the old Empire. Under Snoke's guidance, the First Order pushed into New Republic space, spreading like a plague. None in the First Order knew Snoke's true nature, not even its supreme leader. Palpatine's eyes turned to a more personal legacy. Ben Solo, the grandson of Anakin Skywalker, Ben was gifted with tremendous Force potential. To Palpatine, he represented a chance to reclaim the Skywalker bloodline as an instrument of Sith power. From the shadows, Palpatine whispered into Ben's mind. Voices, secrets, warnings, lies. He sowed doubt. He twisted fears, all while posing as a savior, the only one who understood him. Snoke further manipulated Ben, becoming a mentor while hiding his true allegiance. When Ben learned his grandfather was Darth Vader, truth his family had hidden, he felt betrayed. Luke Skywalker, sensing darkness in the boy, made a tragic error. He briefly considered ending Ben's life. Ben awoke, horrified. He destroyed Luke's Jedi temple and fled. Under Snoke's influence, he took the name Kylo Ren and claimed leadership of the Knights of Ren, to bind him more tightly. Palpatine spoke to Kylo Ren in Vader's voice, a deception designed to drive the boy deeper into darkness while hiding the truth of Anakin's redemption. Kylo Ren killed Snoke, as Palpatine had foreseen and intended, proving himself worthy. But Rey changed everything. One of Palpatine's earliest attempts at creating a suitable Bodhi Strandcast son devoid of Force power had escaped. That son built a life beyond Exegol and fathered a daughter. Rey. Born in 15 Abbey, Rey held incredible potential, a vessel worthy of Palpatine's power. Untrained, unaware, perfect, in 21 Abbey, Palpatine sent his assassin, Oki of Bestun, to retrieve her. Rey's parents, desperate to protect her, left her in the custody of Uncle Plut on Jakku, and fled aboard Oki's ship. When they refused to reveal Rey's location, Oki killed them. But their sacrifice worked. Rey remained hidden. She grew up, scavenging, never knowing who she was or what hunted her. She remained there until 34 Abby, when the search for Luke Skywalker set events in motion. Palpatine's body remained on Exegol, decaying in half-life. Machinery sustained him. Cultists worshipped him. The dark side kept him alive, but barely. He could not leave the planet, could not rule openly, but he could wait, manipulate, scheme. The New Republic never suspected the truth. Luke Skywalker, rebuilding the Jedi, had no idea their ancient enemies still lingered. Leia Organa felt darkness, clouding her sun, but she could not trace it. And so, while the Republic celebrated its rebirth, Palpatine waited, surrounded by ancient Sith idols, monitored by twisted machinery, sustained by unnatural power, dreaming of revenge, of resurrection. The Emperor's fall above Endor was no ending. It was evolution. The greatest Sith in history had not died. He had transformed in 35 AB. The galaxy trembled. A phantom broadcast echoed through every communication system. A voice thought gone forever returned. Emperor Palpatine had somehow come back. The message was a declaration of revenge. It spread terror across a galaxy already wounded. To Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, heir to Vader's legacy. The message was a threatened, a challenge. He sought its source. With a Sith Wayfinder recovered from Mustafar, Kylo Ren journeyed to Exegol. The path was treacherous. Few had ever survived it. What he found defied belief. A vast Sith citadel. A monstrous black structure, and within it, Palpatine, his body ruined. Suspended by machines, his voice still potent, his power still terrible. When Ren threatened him, Palpatine laughed. He had died before. He reminded Kylo, the dark side is a path to abilities some consider unnatural. Then he revealed the truth. He had created Snoke. Tanks nearby held multiple cloned versions of Snoke's body. The voice of Darth Vader, the voice that had shaped Kylo Ren's path, had always been Palpatine. Every whisper, every temptation, every dark dream had been engineered, and then the skies of Exegol broke. Star destroyers rose hundreds, more than fleets, each one armed with world-destroying firepower. A final order. The Emperor had returned, and this time he would not be denied. This was the final order, a hidden fleet forged in secret by the Sith eternal cultists across decades of darkness. Each warship bore a single, terrifying feature, a planet-killing weapon, capable of erasing entire worlds from existence. Just as the Death Star had once reduced Alderaan to ash, now each ship was a Death Star in miniature. Palpatine offered this monstrous fleet to Kylo Ren, offered him the throne of a new empire. But it came with one condition: he must kill Rey, the last Jedi, the girl who had risen out of nowhere to stand against him, his own granddaughter. The truth was as twisted as the Emperor himself. Rey's strength in the Force, so raw and untrained, now had a terrible origin. How could the Emperor, dead for decades, have a granddaughter? The answer lay in his obsession with immortality. During his reign, Palpatine had experimented with cloning, with Strandcast's artificial offspring bred to become vessels for his dark spirit. One such Strandcast had been a failure in his eyes, perfect in body but utterly lacking in Force sensitivity. Palpatine discarded him, left him alive but unloved. That cast-off son escaped, found a woman, fell in love. Together, they had a child, Rey. She carried the very blood of the Sith, and with it, the immense force potential that Palpatine had sought for so long. But Kylo Ren did not carry out the order. He chose a different path. He would bring Rey to Exegol, not to destroy her, but to join with her to defeat the Emperor, seize his throne, and rule together. It was a dark echo of another time of Vader's offer to Luke long ago. The same temptation repeated by a new generation. While Ren hunted Rey, Palpatine enacted the next stage of his contingency. He summoned a Legient general. Pryden, old loyalist from the Imperial Descend, handed command of the First Order military to him. Then, in a display of ruthless power, Palpatine ordered Kijimi annihilated, an entire planet gone, reduced to dust, a warning to the galaxy. The Resistance, meanwhile, learned of Exegol's location thanks to Luke Skywalker's earlier efforts, and Rey, now burdened with the truth of her bloodline, chose to face it. She took Luke's old X-Wing starfighter and used the second Sith Wayfinder to chart the way. Alone, but not entirely before leaving, she transmitted her course to the Resistance. They would follow. When Rey arrived at the Sith Citadel, she entered a chamber unlike any in the galaxy, a vast amphitheater filled with chanting Sith cultists. Suspended above them was Palpatine himself, shackled to his mechanical throne, waiting. He welcomed her as the heir to his legacy, not to destroy her but to possess her, to transfer his essence into her body through an ancient Sith ritual. She was not meant to be his killer. She was meant to be his vessel, to force her hand. Palpatine showed her the battle above resistance ships arriving, only to be slaughtered by his final order. Her friends were dying, her cause crumbling, and in that despair, he offered her a way to save them by taking his place on the Sith throne. But salvation came from the last person she expected. Ben Solo, no longer Kylo Ren, no longer the boy twisted by darkness, but the man reborn through the memory of his father and the sacrifice of his mother, Leia. He had returned to the light and come for her. Rey felt his presence but hid it from Palpatine, buying time. And when Ben arrived, they stood side by side, not as Sith, not as enemies, but as equals in the Force, as partners, together. Palpatine saw it, then a Force dyad. A connection so rare it had become legend. Two beings sharing one essence in the Force, their powers intertwined. And he realized he had no need to possess Rey. He could drain the dyad, take their life force, reclaim his power. And so he did. He lifted them both with the Force, bound them in agony, and began the ritual. Their energy poured into him like a tide. His withered body straightened, fingers regrew, cataracts cleared. For the first time since the Death Star, he stood fully restored, whole, and brimming with the dark side. Reborn, Palpatine cast aside the mechanical harness that had kept him alive and raised his arms. Declared himself once more as Emperor of the Sith. He hurled Ben Solo into a pit, discarding him like a failed weapon. Then he turned his fury toward the skies. Force lightning, vast and all-consuming, shot from his hands, lashing the heavens. The Resistance fleet shuddered and fell. Entire ships lost power and spiraled into darkness. Hope seemed to die, but Rey lived. Weakened but not defeated, she lay still, until a voice then many began to speak. Jedi from generations past, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Luke, Ahsoka, Qui-Gon, Mace. They filled her spirit, whispering strength. She rose. Palpatine, now in his full power, hurled lightning at her. She stood. Blades crossed Leia's, and Luxand held her ground. He screamed that he was all the Sith. She answered, I am all the Jedi. And then, the final act, Rey stepped forward, straining under the weight of power. The lightning curved back toward its source. The dark side turned on its master. Palpatine screamed, body disintegrating under the storm he had created. There would be no escape this time, no spirits slipping away. His essence was destroyed. Utterly, the Sith eternal perished with him. The throne room collapsed. But Rey collapsed as well, lifeless, and then, from the darkness, Ben Solo returned. Broken, wounded, but alive. He took her in his arms. He gave her everything. His own life force poured into her, and with it, he died. Ben Solo faded into the Force redeemed at last. The Skywalker bloodline, so long manipulated by Palpatine, finally broke free from his grasp. In death, Ben found peace above. The Sith fleet fell from the sky. The people of the galaxy, inspired by what they saw, rose up. Bespin, Endor, Corellia, Jakku, even Coruscant, even Naboo Palpatine's homeworld rose against his legacy. The final order collapsed, not just in fire, but in rebellion. And Rey, now alive, made her final choice. She returned to Tatooine, to the old homestead where Luke had once dreamed of the stars. There, she buried the sabers of Luke and Leia, and when asked her name, she gave her truth. Rey Skywalker, not by blood, but by love. She chose a name not born of power, but of hope. The story of Palpatine, the story of Darth Sidious spanned nearly a century. He had risen in shadows, conquered a republic, destroyed the Jedi, ruled an empire, and defied death itself. He had shaped the galaxy more than any Sith before him. He had walked beyond death, but in the end, he was defeated not by greater force, by love, by sacrifice, by connection. The line of Darth Bane ended. The Sith ended, and for the first time in 1,000 years, the shadow passed, and a new dawn began.